Okay, guys, welcome to online math. Hopefully, this will work. I am trying to figure out how I can explain all this stuff to you so that you can understand. And so, this is what I came up with. So, we're going to try this for this week for math and see how it goes. So, we've been doing geometry. We started geometry just finding area of you did triangles and parallelograms and trapezoids. And when we did area, we were talking about two-dimensional shapes because we were using two dimensions, either a base and a height or a length and a width. And so this week we're going to move on to three-dimensional figures, and we're adding another dimension into that. And then also, you guys probably know if you see something that's 3D, that means it's actual, like something you can hold. It's if you think of a 3D shape, like that would be a cube, or something that has your three dimensions. And so we're going to be working with that this whole week with 3D. And the first thing we're going to talk about is what a net is. So if you look on our vocabulary, we have the very last word on there is a net. And that's a flat pattern that you can fold to create a three-dimensional figure. And these are going to be pretty important as we move forward, especially when we start talking about surface area, because the pattern or the net is going to help us see the whole shape if we were to lay it out flat. And then we have the other words, face and base and edge and vertex. And I'm going to show you guys those vocabulary words with an illustration in just a minute so they make more sense to you. Also, this paper I emailed to you, so you should have these notes. And then the next paper that I'm going to show you, you should have that too. I've emailed that to you. So here's the next paper that goes over the different vocabulary that we just saw. And so you have a face, which is like a side. So this is a face right here. This is a face, and then you have one that's behind, and then you have one on this side too. It's kind of hard to see the three-dimensional shapes, especially when we are looking at it on a two-dimensional paper. And then, so those are your faces. They're like the sides. The base is the top and the bottom. And the tricky thing is, though, that this particular shape, you could sit it on any side. So it could sit on this side, and that could be its base. It could sit on the top right now in this picture, and that could be its base too. So base is basically what it would be sitting on if you could set it down. And then the vertex is a point. It's like a corner. Okay. And then your edge is the side. It's where those two faces meet together. Okay, the other thing that we are going to really get into with this is the different types of three-dimensional shapes. So we're going to be working with two different kinds. You're going to have either a prism or you're going to have a pyramid. A prism is a shape, so when it says polyhedron, that's just a shape with many different sides. But the polyhedron is going to have two congruent bases. So that means top and bottom are going to be the exact same shape. Okay, so here we have the rectangle, which it could be considered a square too. We call it a square prism, but rectangular prism is this one. And then this has a triangle for the bases. So that's why it's called a triangular prism. The other type of shape is a pyramid. And the difference between the prism and the pyramid, so a prism has rectangular sides or faces, whereas the pyramid is going to have triangular faces. And because it has triangular faces, it's going to create that point at the top that we are very familiar with when we think of a pyramid. And then the names of either the prism or the pyramid are determined by the base that it sits on. So because this is a square that's the base. That's why it's called a square. And then the name pyramid because the faces are triangular. This is a triangular pyramid because the base is a triangle and your faces are triangles also, which makes it a pyramid. Some other three-dimensional shapes that we aren't going to talk about in 6th grade, but just so that you kind of know what they are. You have a cylinder and a cone, but we don't really talk about circles in 6th grade, so you don't have to know you don't have to know about those shapes. And then we have the net, and the net is a pattern that you can take and use. So if I cut this out and folded it, I could put it together to create this shape right here, which would be the triangular pyramid. Another way to think about it is if I took this and cut it apart and then laid it down flat, this is what it would look like. Okay. And then down at the bottom, you just have this part right here where you could practice filling in for the different shapes, which you have all 4 of them pictured up here. You could go through and figure out how many faces they have, how many vertices, and how many edges. If we were in the classroom, we would go through and do that together. So this would be one of your journal pages that you would have so that you could refer back to it. Okay, but you've got to understand those terms, especially the part with the net, in order to understand what we're going to do next. And then I've attached your worksheets, so they would be 7.6 and the independent practice for 7.6 and the homework for 7.6, and those are going to be your practicing for what we just talked about with this and then with the notes. So and then always remember, if you have questions about this, you can email me. You can I can even talk to you if you need me to FaceTime you, whatever you need. I will help you learn. Okay, so that is our lesson for 3D figures.